Today, we're diving into a massive question, one that's right at the heart of our relationship with technology, agency. You know, our ability to act on the world, to be in control. But as our machines get smarter and smarter, that line between who's doing what is getting seriously blurry. So let's try to bring it into focus.
And I want to start by asking you straight up, are you really in control of your actions? I mean, it feels like the answer should be an obvious yes, right? But as you'll see, both philosophy and what we know about the brain have some pretty surprising things to say about that feeling.
Okay, so just to make sure we're all on the same page, what do we even mean by agency? Well, at its core, it's this incredible power we have to take what's inside our heads, our thoughts, our goals, our intentions, and translate them into actions that actually change the world around us. It's the difference between something just happening to you and you making it happen.
And right there, that's the heart of the issue. For pretty much all of human history, we've thought of agency as this uniquely human thing, or, at least a biological thing. So what happens when our own creations, these incredibly complex AI systems, start doing it too? Who's actually pulling the strings then? To even begin to answer that, we first have to understand where our own feeling of control comes from. How does your brain create that automatic, undeniable sensation of, "Yup, I did that"? Turns out it's this fascinating mix of deep philosophy and hardcore biology.
So, philosophers have been wrestling with this for centuries. On one side, you've got this idea called agent causation. It basically says that you, the person, are the prime mover, the true source of your actions. You're not just a domino in a long chain. But the other side, which is more of the modern view, is called event causation. This says that no, it's actually mental events, like your desire for coffee, plus your belief that there's coffee in the kitchen, that cause the physical event of you getting up and walking over there. So, are you the author? Or are you just the main character in a story that's being written by your own brain chemistry?
Today, the scientific view really leans into that event causation idea. Our intentions cause our actions. But that leaves a huge question unanswered. How does your brain know the difference between an action you intended to do and one that just happened? How does it know it was the cause?
Well, the answer seems to be something called the comparator model. You can think of it like your brain's own internal fact-checking system. It's a three-step process. First, your brain plans an action, let's say flipping a light switch. Then, as it sends the signal to your hand, it also creates something called an efference copy, which is basically a memo to itself predicting exactly what flipping that switch should feel and look like. Finally, it compares that prediction to what actually happens.
And this is the magic moment. When that prediction and the actual sensory feedback line up perfectly, the switch clicks just like you thought it would, the light comes on, your brain goes, "Aha, I did that." That perfect match is your sense of agency. If there's a mismatch, maybe the switch is sticky or the bulb is burnt out, that feeling of control gets weaker. Fun fact, this is also why you can't tickle yourself. Your brain perfectly predicts the sensation, so there's zero surprise. Without surprise, it doesn't feel like someone else is doing it.
Now here's where it gets really weird. You'd think getting a reward would give you the strongest sense of being in control, right? But some studies show that getting a punishment can actually increase our sense of agency even more. The theory is that our brain's monitoring systems go on high alert for negative outcomes, linking our actions much more tightly to things we want to avoid.
Okay, so we kind of have a handle on how our own agency works. Now, let's bring AI back into the picture, because this is where a massive problem for society starts to show up. When a machine acts all by itself, who do we blame when things go wrong? This problem has a name: the responsibility gap. It's this scary legal and ethical void that opens up when an autonomous system, think a self-driving car, a trading algorithm, causes real harm, but it's basically impossible to pin the blame on any single person. The system acted, sure, but no one human was really in control.
And the stakes get terrifyingly high when we start talking about autonomous weapons. Imagine an AI-powered drone makes a tragic mistake and misidentifies a target. So who's at fault? Is it the programmer who wrote millions of lines of code? Is it the commander who deployed the system but didn't pull the trigger? Or do we blame the machine itself?
There are no easy answers here. In fact, legal and ethics experts have a name for this exact situation. They call it a morally unacceptable void. It's a place where terrible harm can happen, but our entire legal and moral framework just breaks down because we can't find anyone to hold responsible.
But look, this isn't just some abstract problem for lawyers and governments. The rise of AI has a direct personal cost for every single one of us. And the big question is, are we just outsourcing our own brains? And what is that doing to our own sense of agency?
The technical term for this is cognitive offloading, and it's something we all do every single day. Every time you let your GPS tell you where to turn, or you ask a search engine a question instead of digging through your own memory, you're delegating a core mental task to a machine.
And this offloading comes in a few different flavors. You've got the Google effect, where we just don't bother remembering things because we know we can always look them up. Then there's something more serious, skill decay, where we can actually lose fundamental abilities, like critical analysis, because we let an AI do that thinking for us. And it all leads to this state of cognitive interdependence, where the line between your own mind and your AI tools starts to get really, really blurry.
So what's the actual damage here? Well, some early research is starting to show a negative link between how often people use AI and their critical thinking scores. The more we offload, the less we exercise those basic mental muscles, and that could actually be making us less capable thinkers without our digital sidekicks.
All right, so we've got a huge responsibility gap in society, and we've got this personal cognitive cost. So how in the world do we start to fix this? Let's take a look at the new rules people are proposing for a world that's full of these new kinds of agents. One really powerful idea is to split the concepts of responsibility and accountability. See, responsibility is about finding a specific person to blame for something, but accountability, that's about assigning a role where the buck stops. So even if no single engineer is responsible for an AI's mistake, the company that built and deployed it can still be held accountable for the damage it causes.
And then there's the whole other can of worms. Should we give AIs some kind of legal personhood, sort of like we do for corporations? There are basically three big camps here. The naturalists say absolutely not. Personhood requires real human-like consciousness. The functionalists argue that if it acts like an agent and makes decisions like an agent, we should treat it like one. And then you have the instrumentalists, who kind of see it as a practical shortcut, a legal fiction that helps us write contracts and policies that work in a world with AI.
You know, when you step back, all of this really points to a massive shift in how we think about control itself. The future of agency might not be about a single person or a single machine anymore. It might be distributed, something that exists in the network between people and the intelligence systems they use.
Which leaves us with one final critical question. We built these tools to extend our own power, to enhance our own agency. But as they get smarter, more independent, and more tangled up in our day-to-day lives and even our thinking, how do we make sure that we are the ones who truly stay in charge?